Hey nerds, Farmer Jesse here. Welcome to Growers Daily, your daily dose of ecological farming insight. It is Monday, September the 22nd, 2025. And today we're talking about curing sweet potatoes to sweeten them up, farmer jargon, and should you plant cover crops and garlic together, like plant the cover crop into the garlic. So let's do it. All right, how about that cover of the theme song from YouTube channel Jen and Jay Do Stuff? That was, as they wrote, plunked out in front of the Baraboo, Wisconsin Public Library. Not sure if I said that name right. It looks like one of the many those like instruments you might see at a playground, which I love that. Very industrious. So shouts to them. All right, happy Monday, everyone. I hope you all had nice weekends. Mine was fairly laid back, honestly. Soccer coaching as usual took place on Saturday, and that was a lot. But Sunday was just hanging out with the family. I was doing my best to catch up on rest from the week before, which started out a bit hectic, as you will remember from some fun soccer parent stuff that we had to deal with. And it kind of stayed hectic all week, just busy with farm work and the show and all the other stuff. It was nice to have one day, no soccer coaching, just hanging out with the family, laughing at the forecast that said 70% chance of rain and none came. Just the normal stuff that happens this time of year. It's kind of been a theme this summer with the rain, a mean theme. Also, don't forget to keep sending your theme song covers to Farmer Mike at no-tillgrowers.com as we celebrate our 1-year anniversary of the show next week, as well as your 20-second farm videos. You can send those always forever. There were a few last week that I really liked, and one on like spotty carrot germination that may have been insightful for people, and I love when people show something practical like that. So shouts to all of you for all of those. That's very cool. Anyway, today I thought I would start with just talking about sweet potatoes as we are going to start harvesting those. We started a couple weeks ago, going to start more in earnest in this upcoming week, although I've seen quite a bit of damage on our sweet potatoes, which I'm not very excited about. I think the drought has brought in some more pests that I hadn't anticipated, so that's exciting. They're just looking for some moisture and they're finding it in our dang sweet potatoes, which is not great. But anyway, we're going to start in on that in earnest this upcoming week. And I thought I would talk a little bit about the curing process because it really makes a difference in my experience, at least with our sweet potato. It's an heirloom called Golden Nugget. We've grown this particular variety for like 16 years now. And we got our original potatoes from a family who'd been growing them for like 15 years before, that got them from a family who'd been growing them for like 20 years before that, who got them from a family who'd been growing them for like 100 years in the region, so on and so on. So they are quite well adapted to our region, and I love them dearly. The flavor is incredible, but they, like most sweet potatoes, require a curing stage to convert their starches to sugars, or the results are just kind of starchy and boring to the point that people feel like they need to dump sugar and marshmallows all over them to make them edible. My dear friends, sweet potatoes are called that for a reason. They are supposed to be sweet, and they will be so long as you cure them. So what does it mean to cure a sweet potato? Now, I've already sort of done this breakdown in a previous episode where I covered sweet potatoes more in depth, like from start to finish. So I will link that as well. But since it's timely, I wanted to focus on the curing stuff a bit. First, obviously, it starts with the harvest. You got to get those things out of the ground before you can cure them, and before the ground starts freezing, because sweet potatoes are none too fond of all that. They will rot and not store very well if they get frosted, or not store at all, really. So if it frosts before you harvest and the greens are still up, you have to mow those greens quickly and make sure to get the potatoes out before it freezes. If it's not freezing temperatures, you can leave them in there for a little while, but you want to get them out pretty soon after mowing. Anyway, after harvest, sweet potatoes need a 2-week curing period, which consists of very high humidity, like 80 to 100%, and temperatures around 80 to 85 degrees. That would be like 27 to 30 degrees Celsius. How do you do this? Well, it doesn't have to be perfect. If you have a house where the temps are closer to like 70, 75 degrees right now, then that will work too. It will just take a little bit longer for them to cure, maybe more like 3 weeks. So don't think of it as something you have to build all new infrastructure for. If you have a warmish place that you can keep them, that should work fine. Just throw some blankets over top to help with, trap the moisture that they have, and that helps with the humidity, or you can add a pan of water underneath that you kind of refresh every couple days to keep it from being gross. In fact, humidity is rarely an issue for us because Kentucky's pretty humid, and the blanket, we'll several frost blankets over top or whatever, that's usually sufficient. But as dry as it has been here this summer, I may also be adding a pan of water underneath just for insurance, because I'm not 100% sure that there's a whole lot of moisture left in those potatoes. We typically do cure in a semi-open greenhouse under blankets, depending on the weather. But if it's cold, they'll go into a closet with a heater, or just in our wash pack shed, which is still warm from the summer. Then on cold nights, I'll turn the small heater on near them, if need be, just to kind of keep them warm. And then that you definitely have to add a pan, because that heater is going to suck a lot of the moisture out. Again, this is only for a couple weeks, so it's not a huge chore necessarily. In the ideal scenario, they would cure where you want to store them. So perhaps like a heated cellar, if that's a thing, that you then, cut off the heat after they're cured. That would be best, but I'm not sure that's entirely common. But we've always had to move them twice, which is not my favorite thing. But yeah, we have a curing space and then we have a storage space. But it's a requisite to have both, because after you cure them, they kind of have to sit in cellar temperatures for like a week or two. That's where they'll finish up their curing, where, the textures and flavors will further develop. And that's pretty much it. It's pretty easy stuff. Watch the sweet potato episode for more details on that whole sweet potato process. But figured since sweet potatoes were what I was working on, we'd make sure that was fully covered for you. Anyway, we're going to take a quick break. And when we return, we will talk farm jargon. Fargon. Nope, never mind. Just farm jargon is fine. BRB.
Brian here, Snowflake Farm. I came down yesterday to terminate this row of tomatoes. It was just some extra plants I stuck in and then ignored. But it's still producing tomatoes, so I think we're going to wait a minute, pick through it and see what we can get. Yeah.
Today's episode of the Growers Daily is brought to you by Farmhand. Farmhand is the virtual assistant built for farmers, helping CSAs scale sales, run error-free fulfillment, and deliver 5-star service. Whether you're at 100 members or 1,000, Farmhand helps you grow without burning out. You've heard us and our farmers right here on Growers Daily. Explore farmer wins and learn more at farmhand.partners/no-till. That's farmhand.partners/no-till. All right, back to the show. If you, the listener, are enjoying this podcast, getting even a small amount of value from it, consider supporting our work over at patreon.com/no-till-growers. I will try to get to questions from everywhere that questions come in, but I will always get to your Patreon questions. Now, today's Patreon question comes to us from Patreon member Michael Miners, who asks, quote, "Hi, Jesse. Quick question. I've noticed you often use the word plant on the podcast, and sometimes it's not totally clear whether you mean direct seeding/transplanting into the field or starting/planting seeds in the greenhouse for later transplant. As a new farmer trying to dial in my crop plan and planting calendar, that clarification would be super helpful moving forward. Thanks for all the work you do, Michael." End quote. Excellent. Thank you, Michael. This is a good question. And indeed, the jargon can be a little confusing. And in fact, I use terms a little looser perhaps than I should as a somewhat of an educator. So let's talk about a few of the terms like planting so that you know what I'm talking about, or any other farmer might be talking about when they use them. Now, of course, like most words, there are colloquial uses and sometimes individuals or farms who use a word just differently than I do. I run into this a lot in soccer, for instance. Any excuse to talk about soccer, but like when I'm telling my kiddos to get back on defense, I tell them to recover. But I heard a coach refer to that as recycle the other day, which is a term I use for kicking the ball back to the defense or goalie to restart the attack. So in the same way that each team or coach can use terms differently, each farmer can have and use terms differently from others. I have no problem with it. Sometimes people get into arguments about these semantics, but this is kind of just how culture works. This, of course, was much more apparent before social media really kicked in and sort of, tried to homogenize our language, but that is perhaps for an entirely different rant. Anyway, transplanting is the term commonly used when seedlings are grown out and then set out into the field as baby plants. Sowing or seeding is used when the raw seed is sown into the field, typically using a seeder or broadcast by hand. Planting can also refer to bulbs or things like that. All of those things can be called planting, but it's typically a term reserved more for transplanting baby plants than it is for seeds. So although I may sow the carrots with a seeder and I may later transplant my tomatoes, that day I could say that I planted both carrots and tomatoes, but I'm more likely to say I sowed the carrots, I planted the tomatoes. It's a little bit of a catch-all word, this word planted, but it generally refers to putting something out in the field. As for growing in the greenhouse, I usually say that I quote-unquote started a crop and not that I planted it. I could throw the word seeded around there, but it's usually more specific. Like I might say, when I was seeding the lettuce in the blocks, it took forever because it was raw seed, which should be outlawed. Also a fact. But if Hannah asks me what I did that day, I'm more likely to say I started lettuce. The verb to sow always refers to raw seed. I would never say I sowed lettuce in the field, meaning I put out baby transplants. I would only say that if I used seed. Anyway, if you all hear me use other terms that you do not or in a different way, or you're not quite sure what they mean, I'm happy to define some of those on Friday or throughout the life of this show. Or if you disagree with my usage or the specific terms that I use, let me know. Pop, soda, Coke, we all have our preferences or terms that we were raised with. So yeah, we may all use different things, which is fine too. Let me know. And otherwise, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, garlic in the cover crops or the other way around. We shall see. Be right back.
Farmer Claire Coleman here from the Winter Growers Podcast. Did you know that I also founded Real Farmer Care, a nonprofit that supports farmer well-being? From my own experiences farming, I knew firsthand that this type of support was missing from ag, so I decided to do something about it. As of today, there are over 500 farmer recipients of a $100 self-care award, with more applying daily. If you'd like to help, each $100 donated supports one new farmer. Visit realfarmercare.com to donate and learn more. Again, that's realfarmercare.com.
All right, so a quick story time. I know I've probably told this story in several places, but a few years back, I got the bright idea to plant some Austrian winter peas in between my rows of garlic. Now, Austrian winter pea is a winter hardy pea, meaning it is not like the field pea, which is a winter killed type. The Austrian winter pea being winter hardy means it will survive the winters pretty readily. For that reason, I was only going to plant one bed that way, but like a 3-year-old standing next to a lovely white clean wall with a Sharpie in hand, I could just not help myself and ended up planting the entire patch with the Austrian winter pea interplanted into the garlic. Now, don't get me wrong, it was beautiful and the peas grew some of the best nodules I've ever seen, but I assumed I'd just be able to easily terminate the peas by cutting them or stomping them, and, well, I just didn't have the time. Once they started to take off in the spring, and the Austrian winter peas ended up taking over the garlic, much of it. Where I was able to kill the peas, the garlic did okay. Where I was not, the garlic was small, and I ran into some fungal issues because the lack of airflow, not to mention harvest was a nightmare because even my bad dreams involve veggies. So clearly, you shouldn't plant a cover crop with garlic, right? Well, this question came up over the No-Till Growers Forum recently, and I thought it would be a good one to touch on here. Speaking of that forum, don't forget that forum is there. And then it's everything from entry-level stuff to high-level market garden topics. Like I just saw in there recently, there's something like redundancy of online payment processing, and another one about help calculating yields for winter lettuce grown in East Tennessee Zone 7A. And then there's also stuff about just like, hey, help me, I'm wanting to start a farm, entry-level stuff. Anyway, I saw that garlic and cover crop question over there, and you definitely should not plant a winter hardy cover crop with the garlic at all. Don't do that. But a winter killed cover crop like field peas, so long as you get them in there on time. I know of growers for whom this has worked, and I am trialing it myself this year. Basically, the idea being that you prep the bed, so with a seeder, rows of winter killed cover crops, then punch your garlic in between those rows. However you plan to do that, you can do that, dig a long furrow and drop them in, or punch them in if the soil is loose enough or whatever. And you do that a week or two later, like after you sowed the winter killed cover crop and before that winter killed cover crop gets too big. So basically you want to see the winter killed cover crop, but you don't want it in your way when you're planting. And then you want it to grow tall, die, and then mulch the surface so the garlic can kind of poke through that. What you would want to avoid is planting your winter killed cover crops so late that it survives, because really young peas are extremely hardy. So if you plant them in, say, late October here, those winter peas are going to survive the winter like the Austrian winter pea did. No problem for them, but that would not be great for your garlic. Also, if you're going to try this, if you're going to try to plant a winter killed cover crop into your garlic, try it. Don't go out and plant every bit of garlic you have with another crop that you've never tried like I did with the Austrian winter pea. Every cover crop supplier is a little different. Every context for that cover crop is a little different. Your timing in your garlic will likewise be yours and yours alone. So is it possible? Yes. Just make sure the beds are clean of weeds before you do it and that the cover crop gets in early enough and that it can terminate like a field pea versus an Austrian winter pea. Like for me, that's right now. I have to get those in, and I like the idea of planting it in rows rather than broadcasting it, because you can come in later and plant the garlic in between those rows. And with bulbs, again, the word is typically to plant, and you can do that without disturbing the cover crop or risking planting it too late. Yeah. What say you all? Have you all tried winter-killed cover crops in garlic? Had any success? Had any failures? Let us know, and we will tackle that on Friday. Otherwise, I think that's a wrap on this Monday. But before we go, we're going to get a quick word from our friends at Rimmel Greenhouse Systems. Whether you're growing tomatoes for market, flowers in the spring, or vegetables for your family, growing in a high tunnel protected from the weather provides the right environment for a harvest you can count on. Rimmel Greenhouses are strong, durable, and easy to assemble, offering the quality you need to grow productively year-round. The team of experts at Rimmel Greenhouse Systems will be your trusted partners to ensure you get exceptional value from your greenhouse or high tunnel investment. Visit Rimmel.com today to get growing. Don't forget, No Till Growers is now officially a nonprofit 501c3, so donations are tax deductible and greatly appreciated. Please make sure to like and subscribe and or follow wherever you're getting this podcast. That's an easy way to help us out. Enormous thank you to all of our show sponsors, and if you'd ever like to sponsor this show, you can reach out to Farmer Michelle at notillgrowers.com. Huge shouts to Willie Breeding for the theme music, Mike Hilbert for the production help and editing, and Jen and Jay Do Stuff and the, what was it called? The Baraboo, Wisconsin Public Library. Shouts to them. Hope they have a copy of the Living Soil Handbook. Also, shouts to Epidemic Sound for the background music that you can hear. Pick up a hat or a copy of my book, The Living Soil Handbook, at notillgrowers.com to support our work. Big thank you to everyone over at patreon.com/notillgrowers, where at a certain level, or if you just bump up from one level to another, or you sign up in the month of September, like, 8 more days? You get a shout out on the show. Forgot that part. So shout outs today to Catherine Brady, Myra Rosenblatt. These are fun names. Chris Swain and Laura. Yeah, this is going to kick off our story well. Let's see. So I think this week's story, so long as our Patreon membership keeps this one alive, of course. This is a story about a grower named, let's call her Susie. Susie grows a bunch of different crops and keeps her farm as diverse as possible, but her main crop, her cash crop, as it were, her livelihood, is peanuts. Living there in, let's say, Georgia, right? This is a crop that does exceedingly well. It needs a nice long season, but there in Georgia, that is no problem. Growing season is not something that they really lack for. But importantly, it isn't like the raw peanut that Susie is after. She's not selling it to a big wholesaler. It's the farm fresh boiled peanuts that she actually sells at the farmer's market from her own peanuts that really brings in the money and keeps the farm afloat. It's a generations-long tradition in Susie's family, and the seeds are heirlooms that are said to have come from George Washington Carver himself. However, one spring, Susie goes to fetch the seed to plant it, which she protects with everything she can think of, and discovers a large wild boar in the barn trying to break into the peanut seed cooler. Then the boar, startled, squares up with Susie like it's going to charge, and Susie finds herself trapped. And that is for tomorrow on Burled. Peanut story. That's what they call them, burled peanuts. Anyway, thanks for watching and or listening. We will check in on Susie tomorrow.